Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of MC Commute, where we review motorcycles as we ride to the motorcyclist headquarters in Irvine, California. And today we'll be reviewing a new motorcycle, that being the 2021 Honda CB1000R Black Edition that you see here behind me. Now, Honda has given this a number of visual updates as well as a couple of functional updates as well. So we got a lot to talk about. Why don't we hit the road? All right, ladies and gentlemen, the 2021 Honda CB1000R Black Edition. Now, obviously, this is an updated model for 2021, being the Black Edition. That's kind of Honda's language for their premium, more up-spec models, especially in the automobiles. I think this is actually the first of the motorcycles that they've called it. And funny enough, there is no standard edition of the CB1000R. It is only the Black Edition. Anyways, we're going to talk about it. The Black Edition gets, as it suggests, it gets a lot of black finishes, a black paint scheme. You'll see with the forks, you have black anodizing. You have black anodizing throughout the chassis and the engine as well. Kind of just black finishes. Even in the exhaust, you get a black finish there as well. New wheels for 2021 that replace the old hoops that were aboard the 2019 CB1000R. And what you're also going to get on this new motorcycle is an updated 5-inch Tft display that you see here in front of me. Now that replaces kind of the clunky old analog dashboard of the outgoing model. Ooh. Ooh. I like the sound of that. It's really not a bad sound. The CB1000R is powered by a previous generation Honda CB1000R superbike motor, that being the 2008 to 2016 model motor. Although it's got some various updates to tune it to the street rather than racetrack performance. Now, one of those updates being Honda's retrofitted ride-by-wire throttle system, which gives you the ability to adjust this motorcycle and tailor this motorcycle via selectable power modes, traction control settings, engine brake settings, to really kind of dial in the performance to your liking. Along with that, you're going to get 3 preset riding modes: Sport, Standard, and Rain, with a 4th additional mode, User, that we can tailor over here to, and that will allow customizable performance of those settings. So, the last time we threw this CB1000R up on the motorcyclist dyno, it produced roughly 120 horsepower and about 69 foot-pounds of torque. Now, the horsepower figures, especially in relation to maybe its CB1000R Fireblade sibling, might be a little bit modest, but man, this thing packs a punch that really becomes addicting and suggests that it has more in the tank than those figures offer. Oh, see? You see what I mean there? Man, this thing is a blast, and it really throws the front end up sometimes a lot quicker than you anticipate. I would suggest that this thing is definitely tractable, usable around town with good feel from the throttle. Pretty smooth running, honestly. There's not a whole lot of vibrations. It's not real lurchy, but man, once this thing gets ripping through the mid-range, maybe 6,000 to 7,000 RPM, it really takes off. It might be a little bit slow right off the bottom. Like right at 6,000 RPM, man, this thing really wants to blast off and really kind of harnesses that CB1000RR performance that, you know, we've come to love at the racetrack. But this is not a CB1000RR. This is Honda's flagship naked machine, the head of its Neo Sports Café lineup, also leading the CB650R and CB300R. It's more adapted to street performance, more everyday performance, while still packing some of that excitement. I think Honda's done a good job there. In terms of naked bike ergonomics, I think Honda has kind of struck the balance right in between a very aggressive naked bike, maybe like a Aprilia Tuono 1100, and something that's a little bit more relaxed, like maybe a Suzuki GSX-S 1000. Now, that meaning the foot pegs are up and back and placed in a pretty aggressive stance, that when it comes time to, you know, use your legs to get yourself through the twisties or kind of put the motorcycle where you need it underneath you, it's in that aggressive stance where you can utilize your legs. Now, the handlebar position is relatively relaxed, with a nice comfortable reach to the grips. We'll stop at the stop sign. 32.8 inch seat height, but a really narrow feel in between the legs, which actually makes it pretty easy to touch the ground on both feet. I wouldn't say I'm flat-footed. I'm 5'7". I wouldn't say I'm flat-footed, but I definitely feel confident rolling at low speed, in low speed situations or stops. I think Honda's done a pretty good job there. Why don't we do a little wheelie here? We have traction control turned off in our user mode. Oh, maybe we have a curve here. Yep. Man, this thing is a blast. Every time I get on this bike, it's just so much fun, man. Like Honda really, this CB1000 really kind of embodies a really good balance of performance and usability and comfort. For me, I like getting on it, turning off the traction control, turning the power all the way up in its 3 selectable modes, and kind of wailing on it, if I'm being honest. That balance, you know, kind of lends itself to really good everyday use, and when you want to turn it up, you can kind of make fun out of your commute. You know, doesn't always have to be just a slog to the office. Now, adding to that performance for the 2021 model is a standard fitted quick shifter now that allows clutchless upshifts as we roll through the gearbox, through the 6-speed gearbox, and it also allows clutchless downshifts with an auto blip function. Now, that means you can take your fingers off the clutch as you're slamming through downshifts on the way to stoplights. Kind of a neat little feature that we're starting to see become more standard on production motorcycles, and honestly, it's really nice. Once you get on one of these things, once you start making use of the quick shifter, you're going to get back on a bike that has a traditional clutch, and you're not really going to want to get off of it. Now, that somewhat aggressive power delivery and power plant is complemented by a pretty agile and nimble chassis that Honda has given the CB1000R. 467 pounds with a full tank of fuel measured on the motorcyclist dyno. It might not be the lightest thing in the world, but it carries itself very, very well. It rides on Showa suspension, being the big piston fork up front, and a Showa shock in the back. The fork is actually fully adjustable, compression and rebound and spring preload. Whoops, we don't want to get a ticket here this morning. Well, the shock is rebound and preload adjustable. Now, I have to admit that I've always found the CB1000R to have a slightly harsh setting for just riding around town. I wouldn't say that it pogos off of the small bumps, but it definitely it lends itself to more sporty riding and really appreciates hard inputs, maybe in the canyons with a lot of brake pressure, or throwing the thing in to corners and hard acceleration. That's what this this suspension setup feels like it's designed for. You kind of feel all the little imperfections, which is a good thing, but when you're cruising around town, I'd say that it's just slightly harsh. This guy is making an interesting turn there, but we're all good. So slightly on the sporty side. If I were to own this motorcycle and use it for my daily commute, maybe I'd just soften it up via damping settings and maybe even a softer spring rate for my liking. Again, I'm a smaller rider, about 140 pounds, so maybe it's just slightly stiff for me. But again, that kind of makes for a pretty entertaining commute when you want it to be. Yes, it might not be, let's rip through here, it might not be the smoothest motorcycle around or the most comfortable in terms of suspension, damping, and performance, but pair that with the somewhat aggressive performance of its 998cc inline-four power plant, and you're gonna have a wicked good time when you want it to be. Now, the CB1000R has smooth off the bottom power response, as we've discussed, but a little bit lurchy throttle. I think, you know, Honda has done a good job of creating a very natural throttle feeling, but I think that the fueling off the very bottom or crack of the throttle is a little bit harsh and a little bit lurchy. I'll show you guys. It can be a little bit harsh without very delicate inputs. Otherwise, I think they've done a really good job, and this power plant is awesome. The assist slipper clutch fitted to this motorcycle, making for easy getaways from the stoplight. I like that feature. Nice, especially for riders with maybe a little bit less experience. Just allows a little assistance getting off from a stop. Now, the CB1000R is stopped by a pair of 4-piston calipers up front with 310 millimeter discs and ABS as standard. I don't really have any complaints about the braking system. I think that they have adequate stopping power and bring you to a quick halt. The ABS sensitivity is really well balanced, I would say. You know, it doesn't flare up too much input or pulses through the finger as you're trying to come to a hard stop. The feel from the brake lever from the master cylinder, however, could be improved. I wouldn't say that it feels wooden, but it definitely lacks a little bit of feel. Maybe changing to an aftermarket brake pad, a softer brake pad, would help with that. Now, we got our turn here. We got the bump. Let's see how the suspension handles it. Yep, a little bit harsh, but it keeps the wheels in line, lets that Pirelli Diablo Rosso 3 rubber do its thing, and now we're on the I-5 headed to the motorcyclist offices in Irvine, California. Let's use that quick shifter, get ourselves up to top gear, where we are spinning, I don't know, maybe 4,500 RPM, cruising along highway speeds, 66 miles an hour. Maybe traffic's a little bit slower here in California, where usually everyone's doing about 120, and on small bikes you're doing everything you can to keep up. Anyways, we're settled in, we're headed to the offices. One of the most notable changes, I would say, to this Black Edition CB1000R is the use of this 5-inch TFT display that you see here in front of me. Now, that replaces the clunky and sort of almost outdated LCD display that was used on the previous, I don't even want to call it the previous generation, but the previous 2019 model CB1000R. If you remember, that dashboard was a little bit difficult to read, a little bit clunky to navigate your way through. This dashboard, in my opinion, kind of solves all those issues. You have that big analog yet digital tachometer over on the left. You have your big speed indicator, pretty easily readable fuel gauge. Those are the important things for me. And even the gear indicator is pretty easily readable. I like that. Kudos, Honda. So we're cruising along. Wow, look at that Viper. That thing's badass. We're cruising along to the motorcyclist offices, doing about 5,000 RPM. We got a 4.3 gallon fuel tank fitted to the CB1000R. On average, because I like ripping, I've seen 34 to 35 miles to the gallon. I've even seen a little bit lower. So you can expect getting about 120 miles to a tank. Now, if you're gonna, ride this motorcycle a little bit more gentle and not, wail on it so much, not take advantage of the wheelies and everything that this bike has to offer, in terms of performance, probably do a little bit better. You could probably get close to 40, but you know me, I'm a racer. I like doing wheelies, I like ripping, and the use of the quick shifter, everything kind of entices you to ride this bike a little bit harder. Of course, naked bike ergonomics mean you're gonna get put in the wind blasts headed down the freeway. This isn't unbearable on this bike. I think the relaxed handlebar position, if not slightly aggressive, kind of puts you in a forward stance to where you don't feel like you're hanging on from the wind blasts. But it is, that's just kind of the downsides of riding a naked bike on the freeway. The mirrors over here are a little bit buzzy as well. I can't deny that it has bugged me in my time on the CB1000R. Maybe getting a set of aftermarket mirrors or something just to kind of to balance it out and give you a better picture of what's actually going on behind you and make better use of those mirrors. I think that would be a positive. Otherwise, I don't really have many other complaints about this bike. Yeah, the brakes might be a little bit numb. The power might be a little bit snatchy in terms of initial response. From there, it's very smooth, very easy to use, and the mirrors might be a little bit buzzy. But honestly, this bike kind of just does everything really well, and honestly, I enjoy my time on it. So, where does this Honda CB1000R Black Edition stand? On my list, I'd say it's actually pretty high up. Yes, it might not have the most performance. 120 horsepower in this class isn't really trend-setting. Not trend-setting, but it isn't really impressive when you compare it to bikes like the Tuono or maybe a Super Duke. But I also don't think that it's really meant to be competing with those Super Nakeds. This is kind of a flagship model of that Neo Sports Café lineup, as we mentioned in the past. So it's a great final destination for someone making their way through that category, through that lineup, from the CB300 over to the CB650R and finally the CB1000R. All right, MC Commute Wheelie Zone. We haven't done one of these in a while. Yeah. Now, that was a blast. I'm telling you guys, this bike is a blast to ride. A little bit lurchy. Now, in terms of direct competition, I think that this bike has to be compared to something like the Yamaha MT-10, the Suzuki GSX S 1000, but and before I get there, I would say that this bike has very comparable performance. They're all a blast. They're all super fun to ride. What I think that this Yamaha, you dum-dum, I think what this Honda has is a really premium fit and finish, attention to detail, especially in this new Black Edition, and they've done a really good job just creating a really high-end feeling motorcycle in a package that's not necessarily the most pricey thing in the world. Now, that being said, the CB1000R Black Edition is $12,999. That is an identical price to the previous model without those additional upgrades like the quick shifter, the dashboard, all the premium finish. So Honda has kept the MSRP exactly the same. So to recap, this CB1000R Black Edition utilizes that 998cc previous generation superbike platform with really approachable performance. It's smooth off the bottom with a wicked ripping mid-range that you've seen. We did some wheelies, and honestly, I have a hard time not taking advantage of what it has to offer, but it's also smooth running, cruises down the freeway, and is a really comfortable, easy to use platform. The chassis is super nimble, lends itself to sporty riding. Yes, the Showa suspension might be a little bit harsh for cruising around town, but when you get onto those back roads, once again, I think that it finds its place really well. The styling of this bike, in my opinion, I think Honda has knocked it out of the park. I think that it finds a really good blend of that retro feel that they've been going for, but also packing some modern lines, modern contours, giving it LED lighting, a lot of neat little features that really bring it up to speed with a premium fit and finish. Honda has killed it, in my opinion. So finally, the Honda CB1000R Black Edition is a nice upgrade from the outgoing model with all of that fit and finish, the functional details as well. Honda has really done a good job. It holds an awesome place in this category, and I look forward to putting this thing alongside some of those other competitors. I had a blast aboard this motorcycle. I hope that you guys enjoyed riding along with me. So if you like this video, be sure to like it, comment, we want to hear from you, and subscribe to the Motorcyclist YouTube channel. Head over to motorcyclistonline.com, read the full story, and we'll see you guys next time.